Hi everyone, Myzzrym here. Welcome to our second video dev diary. Today we're going to be tackling combat in Solasta, and more specifically, the basis of action economy, or what your character can do every turn. For those who may not know, Solasta is using the SRD 5.1 rule set, which contains the combat rules of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The goal in most combat encounters is fairly straightforward. Beat the bad guys before they beat you. Every character has a healthy amount of health points, or HP, and when that amount reaches 0, that person or monster fall. When combat starts, every character and monster will roll initiative. This is done by rolling a d20 and add the result to their initiative modifier. The character or monster with the highest initiative plays first, and then we go by descending order. Once everyone has played, it's the end of the first round, and the second round begins, with the same order as you only roll initiative at the start of the fight. Now that we know the playing order, let's move to what you can do. There are 4 main resources every character can use regardless of their class. Their movement, an action, a bonus action, a reaction. Once you use that resource, you regain it at the start of your next turn. Let's start with movement. As the name implies, you use your movement to, well, move your character. Unlike in most other tactical RPGs, your movement can be used at any time during your turn, so you can move, attack, move again if you want to, as long as you have enough movement. You can also carefully plan your movement by moving a few feet at a time to, for example, go around an enemy. In Solasta, movement is broken down by cell, each cell representing a 5 feet cube. Elves, humans, and half-elves have a base movement of 30 feet, or 6 cells. Shorter folks, on the other hand, such as dwarves and halflings, usually have a base movement of 25 feet, or 5 cells. The exception to the rule being the Sylvan Elves, who are slightly faster than everyone with 35 feet per round. Moving through what we call difficult terrain doubles the movement cost. Difficult terrain can be anything from deep swamps to rubble-filled corridors, or even moving through a friendly character's cell. Note that while you can move through allies, you can't normally move through an enemy's space unless you have some special power to do so. Now let's move to the action. Your action is pretty much your bread and butter, and you will be using it to do pretty much everything. Here is a quick list of the most common uses of your action in Solasta. Attacking an enemy with a weapon, casting a spell, shoving an enemy back or to the ground, dashing to increase your movement for this turn, dodging to reduce the chances of enemies hitting you, disengaging to move away from enemies without them attacking you, using an item such as a potion, and readying an action to act later. Now, as you can see, that's a lot of choices, and you can only use one during your turn. And this is why playing as a group is very important, as each of your adventurer will often have different roles and use different action during their respective turn. Alright, now onto the bonus action. Your bonus action is a little more complex, as not every archetype will have something to use it on. Here are some examples of bonus actions. Attacking with a secondary weapon if you're dual wielding, casting some specific spells that take a bonus action instead of an action, and using certain class powers such as Second Wind for the fighter or Cunning Action for the rogue. In case you're wondering why bonus action exists, it's to allow players to do a little bit something else on top of their action while still limiting the use of that particular option to once per turn, so you don't just activate all of your powers at once, for example. And also keep in mind that you can trade an action for the bonus action or vice versa. Last is the reaction, which might be the most complex of the bunch. Your reaction, as the name implies, is usually something your character does in reaction to something else, which are, for example, making an attack of opportunity when the enemy tries to get away from you, using your ready action once the conditions are met, casting a spell in reaction to something, for example, getting attacked. The reaction is special in that you will usually trigger it during someone else's turn in reaction to what they do, making you play even though it's not your turn. Reactions are a very important part of the game because they add an extra layer of interaction between characters and monsters, which sometimes can feel lacking in turn-based game where it's kind of like your turn and then my turn, and you feel like, each camp has one strategy and they can't interact with each other. There are also a few options that don't use any of the previously mentioned resource that some people refer as free action due to playing older edition of the rule set where they were named free actions. Now, in 5th edition, this is no longer the case, but it's a little bit easier to say free action than action that are not a bonus action and main action or movement. So on tabletop, those are usually things you will do without even thinking about it, such as talking to an ally, gesturing, or doing pretty much anything that adds a bit of roleplay to the situation. Something you will often see in-game that falls into this category is interacting with the environment, such as using your torch to light a wall sconce. And some powers, such as the fighter's action surge, can also be used without spending an action or a bonus action, but those are fairly rare. Overall, knowing how to use all of these resources every turn is called managing your action economy, which was what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, and action economy is actually a very well known and very discussed topic on tabletop when you're trying to get the best out of your characters. Like, you want the character to do as many things as you can every turn. But that being said, you don't have to worry if optimization is not your forte or if it's not an aspect of the game you're really interested into. You can still play Solasta regardless. Like, you don't need to be an optimization beast to be able to beat the campaign. I hope this video was helpful to you to better understand the basics of combat in Solasta. See you next time on the channel for another dev diary, or join us on Discord to chat with the dev team directly. See ya! Moving through what we call difficult terrains. Mimi, you love it! Come from Paris!